The ground shook under Marcus Chen's boots as another explosion lit up the dark sky. He pressed his back against the broken wall and checked his rifle. Only 12 shots left. Around him, the remains of Firebase Delta burned in the night. The smell of smoke and death filled the air. "Commander Chun, we have movement on the east side," his radio crackled. The voice belonged to Sergeant Williams, one of the few humans still alive in his unit. Marcus looked through a hole in the wall. In the distance, black shapes moved like a dark wave across the battlefield. The void swarm was coming for them again. These creatures had no mercy, no fear, and no limit to their hunger. They consumed everything in their path. "How many?" Marcus asked into his radio. "Too many to count, sir. Maybe 1,000. Maybe more." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. His unit had started with 200 soldiers 3 days ago. Now only 37 remained. The Zephyrians had lost even more. Their honor code made them fight head-on, which was brave but costly against an enemy like the swarm. Heavy footsteps approached from behind. Marcus turned and saw a massive figure walking toward him. Veltar Keth stood 8 feet tall, his green scales covered in dust and blood. The Zephyrian warrior carried a plasma cannon that would take 2 humans to lift. His yellow eyes met Marcus's brown ones. "Human friend," Veltar said in his deep voice. His English was good, but he still spoke slowly. "My warriors count 600 swarm creatures moving from the north. Your people see how many from the east?" "About 1,000, Marcus replied. "Maybe more," Veltar nodded slowly. "Then we die with honor today." Marcus shook his head. "No, we live. Both our people need us to live." The Zephyrian looked puzzled. His people believed that dying in battle was the greatest honor. But Marcus had learned something different during their 3 years of fighting together. Sometimes the greatest honor was staying alive to protect others. "Listen," Marcus said, pointing to his map. "The swarm always attacks in straight lines. They don't think like we do. They just consume and move forward." Veltar studied the map. "Yes, they have no strategy, only hunger. But we do have strategy. Your people are strong and can hold a line. My people are fast and can move around the enemy." Marcus traced lines on the map with his finger. "If we work together, we can survive this." The radio crackled again. "Commander, they're getting closer. We need orders." Marcus looked at Veltar. "Will you trust me, my friend?" The big alien was quiet for a moment. In Zephyrian culture, trust was sacred. Once given, it could never be broken. "I trust you, Marcus Chun. What do you need?" "I need your warriors to form a line here," Marcus pointed to a spot on the map. "Make it look like that's all we have left. The swarm will attack your position with everything they have. And your people? We'll move around behind them. When they're focused on your warriors, we'll hit them from the back. But your people have to hold the line no matter what. Can they do that?" Veltar's eyes glowed brighter. "Zephyrian warriors do not retreat." "We will hold," Marcus nodded. "I know you will. That's why this will work." They quickly spread the word to their remaining soldiers. The humans moved quietly through the ruins, using shadows and broken buildings to hide. The Zephyrians formed a defensive line in the open ground, their weapons ready. To the swarm, it would look like easy prey. Marcus crouched behind a fallen wall with his remaining soldiers. Through his scope, he watched the swarm approach. The creatures looked like giant insects made of shadow and teeth. They moved without sound, flowing across the ground like dark water. The first wave hit the Zephyrian line with terrible force. Plasma fire lit up the night as Veltar's warriors fought back. The aliens stood firm, not giving up even one step of ground. Marcus watched his friend in the center of the line, his plasma cannon firing again and again into the massive enemies. "Now," Marcus whispered into his radio, the humans attacked from behind. Their weapons might not be as powerful as Zephyrian plasma cannons, but they were fast and accurate. The swarm creatures were caught between 2 forces. They tried to turn and face the new threat, but this created confusion in their ranks. Marcus ran through the battle, shooting at any swarm creature he could see. Next to him, Sergeant Williams threw grenades into groups of enemies. All around them, humans and Zephyrians fought side by side, but the swarm was learning. The creatures began to spread out, trying to surround both groups. Marcus saw the danger immediately. "Veltar!" he shouted into his radio. "They're trying to circle us." "I see it," came the reply. "What do we do?" Marcus looked around quickly. There was an old building to their right, mostly destroyed but still standing. "Everyone fall back to the factory. We make our stand there." The retreat was dangerous. Swarm creatures followed them, snapping at their heels. 2 more humans fell before they reached the building. Once inside, they set up a defensive circle. Humans took the upper floors with their rifles, while Zephyrians held the ground level with their heavy weapons. The building shook as hundreds of swarm creatures crashed against its walls. Claws scratched at metal and concrete, dark shapes tried to climb through broken windows. Marcus found himself fighting next to Veltar on the ground floor. A swarm creature broke through the wall and lunged at the human commander. Veltar's massive hand grabbed the creature and threw it back outside. "Thank you, brother," Marcus said, breathing hard. "You would do the same for me," Veltar replied. Reloading his weapon. The battle went on for hours. The building slowly filled with smoke and the smell of weapons fire. Bodies of swarm creatures piled up around them, but more kept coming. Just when it seemed hopeless, the attack suddenly stopped. Marcus looked outside and saw the remaining swarm creatures retreating into the distance. Dawn was breaking over the battlefield. "Is it over?" Sergeant Williams asked. Marcus nodded slowly. For now. They had lost 18 more soldiers during the night. Only 19 humans and 12 Zephyrians remained from the original 200. But they were alive. Veltar walked over to Marcus. Both were covered in dirt, blood, and smoke. "Your plan saved us all." "Your warriors saved us," Marcus replied. "Without their courage, my plan would have failed." Zephyrian placed a heavy hand on Marcus's shoulder. "We are brothers now. Brothers in arms. This bond cannot be broken." Marcus looked up at his alien friend. 3 years of fighting together had taught him that courage came in many forms. Sometimes it meant charging into battle. Sometimes it meant standing firm when everything seemed lost, and sometimes it meant trusting someone completely different from yourself. "Brothers in arms," Marcus agreed. In the distance, ships appeared in the sky. The joint fleet had finally arrived. The war against the Void Swarm was almost over. Soon, both their peoples could go home and rebuild their worlds. Neither Marcus nor Veltar could imagine that in just a few years, they would be pointing weapons at each other instead of fighting side by side. The bond they had forged in fire seemed unbreakable, but war has a way of changing everything, even the strongest friendships. 5 years had passed since the last Void Swarm creature died on Kepler 442b. Admiral Marcus Chun stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Terran cruiser Defiance, looking out at the stars. The war had ended, but the galaxy felt different now. Colder somehow. His uniform was crisp and clean. Not like the dirty combat gear he wore during the Swarm War. 3 silver stars sat on his shoulders. He had climbed the ranks quickly after the victory. The government said heroes deserved rewards. "Admiral," called his aide, Lieutenant Rodriguez, "we have a message from Fleet Command. They want to see you in your ready room." Marcus nodded and walked to his private office. The message appeared on his screen. It was from Admiral Thompson, his superior back on Earth. "Marcus, we have a situation. 3 of our supply ships have gone missing near the Zephyrian border. They disappeared without sending any distress calls. We need you to investigate. Be careful. The political situation is getting tense." Marcus frowned. Supply ships did not just disappear. Someone had to be responsible. But who would attack human vessels? The galaxy was supposed to be at peace. He called his bridge crew. "Set course for the Kepler sector. We need to find our missing ships." The journey took 2 days. As they traveled, Marcus read reports about the current state of the galaxy. What he learned worried him. Humanity had recovered from the war faster than anyone expected. Human colonies were spreading across dozens of star systems. New technologies were being developed every month. The Zephyrians were not doing as well. Their rigid culture made change difficult. They rebuilt slowly, following old traditions. Many of their worlds were still damaged from the war. Some Zephyrian leaders worried that humans were expanding too quickly. When the Defiance reached the search area, they found debris floating in space. Marcus ordered his crew to scan the wreckage. The results were disturbing. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, his science officer, "these pieces came from our missing ships. The damage patterns are consistent with Zephyrian plasma weapons." Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir, the burn marks are distinctive. Only Zephyrian weapons create this type of damage." Marcus stared at the screen showing the destroyed ship parts. Why would the Zephyrians attack human supply ships? It made no sense. They were allies. "Brothers in arms," his communication officer spoke up. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian ship." "It's Commander Veltar Keth." Marcus felt his heart jump. He had not spoken to his old friend in over a year. Their governments had grown apart since the war ended. Official meetings had replaced personal calls. "Put him through," Marcus ordered. The main screen showed Veltar's familiar face. The big Zephyrian looked older now. His yellow eyes seemed tired. Behind him stood other Zephyrian officers that Marcus did not recognize. "Marcus Chun," Veltar said formally. "I heard you were investigating missing ships in this sector." "Veltar, my friend." "Yes, we found the wreckage. 3 supply ships destroyed. The evidence points to Zephyrian weapons." Veltar's expression did not change. "That is unfortunate. But human ships have been entering restricted space near our borders. Some of my people consider this an aggressive act." Marcus felt confused. Restricted space? These ships were on approved trade routes. The treaty allows passage through these systems. The treaty has been interpreted differently by our 2 governments, Veltar replied carefully. "What your people call trade routes, we call security violations." "Veltar, what are you saying? Did your people destroy our ships?" The Zephyrian was quiet for a long moment. "I am saying that mistakes can happen when tensions are high. Perhaps your ships wandered into areas they should not have been." Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. This was not the same alien who had fought beside him against the swarm. That Veltar would never have spoken in riddles or made excuses for attacking innocents. "Those ships carried medical supplies and food to the outer colonies," Marcus said, his voice getting harder. "Families depend on those supplies. Children depend on them." "And Zephyrian families depend on their security," Veltar replied. "Your rapid expansion makes many of my people nervous. They remember when other species expanded quickly. It did not end well for their neighbors." Marcus realized they were no longer talking as friends. This was a political conversation between 2 military officers representing different governments. The thought made him sad and angry at the same time. "So you're saying that Zephyrian forces destroyed our ships because they felt threatened?" "I'm saying that actions have consequences. When human ships ignore warnings and enter sensitive areas, bad things can happen." Marcus felt his temper rising. Those areas were not marked as sensitive in any official communication. If your government has concerns, they should be raised through proper diplomatic channels. Perhaps your government has not been listening to our concerns through those channels, Veltar said coldly. The 2 friends stared at each other across the screen. Years of trust and brotherhood seemed to crumble between them. Marcus remembered holding the line together on Kepler 442b, saving each other's lives, calling each other brother. Now they sounded like enemies. "Veltar," Marcus said quietly, "what happened to us?" The Zephyrian's expression softened slightly. "War changes everything." "Marcus, even peace changes everything. Our peoples have different needs now, but we're still the same people who fought together. We trusted each other with our lives. That was during war. This is peace. Peace has its own battles." Marcus wanted to argue more, but he could see other Zephyrian officers behind Veltar, watching the conversation. His own crew was also listening to every word. This was not a private talk between friends. This was official business between potential enemies. "I hope you find what happened to your ships," Veltar said formally. "But I suggest your government be more careful about where it sends its vessels in the future," the communication ended. Marcus stared at the blank screen for a long time. His bridge crew worked quietly around him, pretending they had not heard the tension in that conversation. Lieutenant Rodriguez approached carefully. "Sir, what are your orders?" Marcus thought about the situation. 3 ships destroyed. Evidence. Pointing to Zephyrian weapons. His old friend making veiled threats. The political situation getting worse every month. "Send a message to Fleet Command," he said finally. "Tell them we found evidence of Zephyrian involvement in the destruction of our supply ships. Request instructions on how to proceed." "Yes, sir." Marcus walked back to his quarters. On his desk sat a photo from the end of the Swarm War. It showed him and Veltar standing together after their final victory, both smiling despite their wounds. They looked like brothers who would never be separated. He picked up the photo and studied it. What had gone wrong? How had 2 peoples who fought so hard together become so suspicious of each other so quickly? The answer, he realized, was simple and terrible. Peace was harder than war. During war, you knew who your enemies were. During peace, you had to decide who your enemies might become. Marcus put the photo in a drawer and did not look at it again for a long time outside his window. The stars looked cold and distant. Somewhere among them, his former brother was probably thinking the same dark thoughts. The galaxy felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something bad to happen. Marcus feared that wait would not last much longer. The first shots of the war were fired at Dawn Station, a small human outpost on the edge of Zephyrian space. Admiral Marcus Chun received the news while reviewing fleet reports in his office. Lieutenant Rodriguez burst through the door without knocking. "Sir, we have an emergency. Dawn Station is under attack." Marcus looked up from his papers. "Under attack by who?" "Zephyrian warships, sir. 3 heavy cruisers opened fire without warning. The station's shields are failing." Marcus felt his blood turn cold. Dawn Station had 5,000 civilians. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong. "How long until the station falls?" "Maybe an hour, sir." "The station commander is requesting immediate assistance." Marcus was already moving toward the bridge. "Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for emergency jump to Dawn Station. Launch in 10 minutes. As his crew prepared for battle, Marcus tried to understand what was happening. Why would the Zephyrians attack a civilian station? It went against everything they claimed to believe in. Their honor code supposedly protected innocent people. The jump to Dawn Station took 40 minutes. When Marcus's fleet arrived, they found the station burning in space. Pieces of metal and debris floated around it like a cloud of death. Only the central section was still intact and barely— "Sir?" called his tactical officer. "I'm reading 3. Zephyrian cruisers moving away from the station. They're heading back toward their territory." Marcus studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were already several hours away at maximum speed. But something about their formation looked familiar. He had seen that pattern before during the Swarm War. "Signal those ships," Marcus ordered. "Demand they stop and surrender." The reply came quickly. "This is Fleet Commander Veltar Keth of the Zephyrian Navy. Human vessels, you are in violation of our security zone. Leave immediately or face the consequences." Marcus closed his eyes. So it was true. His old friend had ordered the attack on innocent civilians. The Veltar he remembered would never have done such a thing. "Veltar, this is Marcus. You just attacked a civilian station? Thousands of people are dead or dying." "Why?" There was a long pause before Veltar answered. "The station was being used to supply human military ships entering our territory. It was a legitimate military target." "That's a lie and you know it," Marcus replied angrily. "Dawn Station was a research facility. They studied star formation. They had no military purpose." "Intelligence reports indicated otherwise," Marcus wanted to scream. Intelligence reports could say anything. Someone had fed Veltar false information to justify this attack. Or maybe Veltar was lying to himself about what he had done. "Signal the fleet," Marcus told his crew. "Pursuit course. Maximum speed." The chase lasted 3 days. Marcus's ships were faster than the Zephyrian cruisers, but Veltar had a head start. The two fleets moved deeper into contested space, the area between human and Zephyrian territories where neither side had clear control. Finally, Veltar's ships stopped running. They formed a defensive line near a large asteroid field. Marcus recognized the formation immediately. It was the same tactic they had used together against the swarm. 3 ships in a triangle, supporting each other with overlapping fire zones. Marcus deployed his fleet in response. He had 7 ships to Veltar's 3, but Zephyrian vessels were larger and more heavily armed. This would not be an easy fight. "All ships, this is Admiral Chun," Marcus broadcast to his fleet. "The enemy commander is experienced and skilled. Do not underestimate him. Follow your training and watch out for each other." The battle began when Veltar's lead ship fired a plasma torpedo at Marcus's flagship. The weapon struck the Defiance's shields and sent sparks flying across the bridge. "Return fire," Marcus ordered. "Target their engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed." But Veltar had no such restrictions. His ships fired to kill. Plasma beams and torpedo volleys filled the space between the two fleets. Marcus realized quickly that his old friend was fighting without mercy. The human ships spread out, using their speed and agility to avoid the heavy Zephyrian weapons. Marcus remembered how Veltar thought during battle. The alien was methodical and patient. He would try to force the human ships into a killing zone where all 3 Zephyrian vessels could focus fire. "All ships, pattern Delta," Marcus commanded. "And not let them box us in?" The human fleet scattered in different directions, then came back together from unexpected angles. It was a tactic Marcus had developed during the Swarm War. Veltar would remember it, but hopefully not quickly enough to counter it. The strategy worked. Marcus's ships came at the Zephyrian formation from 3 sides at once. Veltar's vessels found themselves surrounded and outnumbered, but the alien commander was not finished. He ordered his ships to ram speed toward the largest group of human vessels. It was a desperate move, but it might work. If Veltar could break through the human formation, he could escape into the asteroid field. Marcus saw the danger immediately. "All ships, emergency turn. Do not let them through our lines." The space battle became a deadly dance. Ships twisted and turned around each other, firing at point-blank range. The human cruiser Yorktown took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of fire. 43 people died in an instant. Marcus felt rage building inside him. These were his people, dying, his responsibility. And they were being killed by someone who used to be his brother. "Target the Zephyrian flagship," Marcus ordered. "Full power to weapons." The Defiance turned toward Veltar's ship and fired everything it had. Plasma beams and missile salvos struck the alien vessel's shields. For a moment it looked like the Zephyrian ship might be destroyed, but Veltar was too good a commander to be beaten so easily. His ship rolled away from the attack and fired back. The return volley nearly crippled the Defiance's engines. "Sir," called his damage control officer, "we've lost main power to the port side. Weapons are down to 60%. Marcus looked at the tactical display. 2 of Veltar's ships were badly damaged, but they were still fighting. His own fleet had lost 1 ship and 2 others were in serious trouble. Then something unexpected happened. Long-range sensors detected more ships approaching. "A lot more ships." "Sir," reported his communications officer, "I'm reading 12 Zephyrian vessels jumping into the system." "They'll be here in 20 minutes. Marcus realized the trap. Veltar had been delaying him, keeping him in one place until reinforcements could arrive. It was a smart strategy. And now Marcus's fleet was outnumbered 2 to 1. "All ships prepare to withdraw," Marcus ordered reluctantly, but as his fleet turned to leave, Veltar's voice came over the radio. "Running away, Marcus." "That does not seem like the human I remember." Marcus stopped his retreat. "The challenge," in Veltar's voice, reminded him of their old friendship when they used to tease each other before battles. But now the words felt like poison. "I remember a Zephyrian who protected innocent people. Marcus replied. What happened to him? He learned that innocence is a luxury we cannot afford anymore. The approaching Zephyrian reinforcements forced Marcus to withdraw. His fleet jumped away just before the enemy arrived. But as they escaped, Marcus realized something important had changed. The war was no longer about politics or territory. It had become personal. He and Veltar were no longer friends who found themselves on opposite sides. They were enemies who remembered being friends. And that made everything much worse. The real war was just beginning. 2 years of war had turned the galaxy into a burning wasteland. Admiral Marcus Chun stood in the ruins of what used to be his ready room aboard the Defiance. The ship had been rebuilt 3 times since the war started. Each time it came back smaller and more desperate. Marcus looked older now. Gray streaks ran through his black hair. Deep lines marked his face from months of stress and sleepless nights. His uniform was patched and worn. New ships were hard to build when half the galaxy was on fire. Sir, called Commander Hayes his new first officer. Lieutenant Rodriguez had died 6 months ago during the Battle of Proxima. We're approaching the Helios Gate. The Zephyrian fleet is already in position. Marcus nodded and walked to the bridge. Through the main screen, he could see the massive space gate that connected 3 star systems. Whoever controlled Helios controlled the shipping lanes for dozens of worlds. It was the most important strategic point in this sector. The Zephyrian fleet waited on the other side of the gate. 27 ships arranged in perfect formation. Marcus counted only 19 human vessels. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and running low on supplies. But they had to win this battle. If the Zephyrians took Helios, the war would be over. Signal from the enemy flagship, reported his communications officer. It's Fleet Commander Veltar Keth. He wants to talk. Marcus almost smiled. Even after 2 years of killing each other, Veltar still followed the old protocols. Put him through. The screen showed Veltar's face. The alien looked as tired as Marcus felt. His yellow eyes had lost their brightness. Scars covered his green. Scales from previous battles. Behind him, Marcus could see damage to the Zephyrian ship's bridge. Marcus Chun, Veltar said formally, you are outnumbered. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Veltar Keth, Marcus replied. You know I can't do that. Too many people depend on this gate staying in human hands. Then too many people will die today. Marcus studied his former friend's face. How many have died already, Veltar? How many good soldiers from both our peoples? Do you even remember why we're fighting? Veltar was quiet for a moment. I remember everything. The question is whether you do. I remember fighting beside you against the swarm. I remember calling you brother. I remember when we both wanted peace. It was never possible, Veltar said sadly. Your people expand too quickly. They take too much. War was inevitable. Your people started this war by attacking civilian stations. Your people violated our territory first. They had argued these same points 100 times during the war. Neither would change his mind. Both believed they were fighting for survival. Enough talking, Marcus said. If you want this gate, come and take it. The transmission ended. Marcus turned to his crew. All ships, Battle Formation Alpha, we're going to punch through their center line and take out their flagship. It was a desperate plan. The human fleet would charge straight at the strongest part of the Zephyrian formation. Most of Marcus's ships would probably be destroyed. But if they could disable Veltar's command ship, the enemy fleet might fall apart. Sir, Commander Hayes said quietly. Are you sure about this? We could try a flanking maneuver instead? Marcus shook his head. Veltar expects me to be clever. He's prepared for every smart tactic I might use, but he won't expect me to do something stupid. The battle began with a massive exchange of fire. Plasma beams and missile volleys filled the space around the gate. The first human ship to die was the cruiser Liberty. It took a direct hit from 3 Zephyrian vessels and broke apart like a toy. Marcus pushed his fleet forward through the enemy fire. Ships exploded around him, but he kept going. His plan was working. The Zephyrians were so focused on stopping his charge that they were bunching up their formation. Target the flagship, Marcus ordered. all weapons, full power. The Defiance. And 4 other human ships fired everything they had at Veltar's vessel. The alien ship's shields flared and failed. Secondary explosions ripped through its hull dot, but Veltar was not finished. His damaged ship rammed forward directly at the Defiance. The 2 flagships crashed together in a twisted mass of metal and fire. Marcus was thrown from his chair as the ships collided. Emergency lights flickered on and off. Smoke filled the bridge. All around him, his crew struggled to their feet. "Damage report," Marcus called out. "Both ships are locked together," Hayes replied, blood running down his face. "We've lost main power. Life support is failing." Marcus grabbed his sidearm and a portable oxygen unit. "Emergency teams, follow me. We're going aboard the enemy ship." The airlocks between the 2 vessels had been crushed in the collision. Marcus and his boarding party had to cut through the hull with plasma torches. When they finally broke through, they found themselves in the Zephyrian ship's cargo bay. The alien vessel was in worse shape than the Defiance. Bodies floated in the zero gravity. Broken machinery sparked and smoked. But somewhere in this wreckage, Veltar was still alive. Marcus moved carefully through the dark corridors. His flashlight beam revealed scenes of destruction everywhere. Human and Zephyrian bodies lay together where the crews had fought and died. Some were still holding weapons. Others had died trying to help wounded enemies. The sight made Marcus sick. These soldiers had served together during the Swarm War. Now they killed each other in dark hallways while their ships burned around them. Marcus found Veltar in the auxiliary bridge. The alien commander sat alone among his dead crew members. Green blood covered his uniform. His plasma rifle lay on the floor beside him. "Hello, Marcus," Veltar said weakly. "I wondered if you would come." Marcus kept his weapon pointed at his former friend. "It's over, Veltar. Your ship is dying. Your fleet is scattered. Surrender." Veltar laughed, but it turned into a cough. "Look around you, human. Your ship is dying too. Your people are dying too. What have we accomplished?" Marcus looked at the bodies surrounding them. He recognized some of the faces. Zephyrian warriors he had fought beside during the war against the Swarm. Good soldiers who had died for nothing. "We've accomplished exactly what our governments wanted," Marcus said bitterly. "We've destroyed each other." "Do you remember Lieutenant Castari?" Veltar asked, pointing to a young Zephyrian body near the wall. "She saved your Sergeant Williams during the battle on Kepler 442b. Now she's dead, and Williams died last year at New Geneva." Marcus remembered. The young alien had carried the wounded human to safety while under heavy fire. She had risked her life for someone from another species. Now she was just another casualty in a war that should never have happened. "Why did we let this happen?" Marcus asked. "Because we forgot that being brothers means more than following orders," Veltar replied. The alien struggled to his feet. For a moment Marcus thought Veltar might attack him. Instead, his former friend walked to a viewing port and looked out at the battle still raging around them. "My fleet will withdraw," Veltar said quietly. "You can have your gate." "But this war is not over. Too much blood has been spilled. Too much hate has been created. It doesn't have to continue," Marcus said. "We could end it here." Veltar turned back to face him. "Could we? Can you forget all the humans who have died? Can I forget all the Zephyrians you have killed?" Marcus wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe they could go back to being friends. But he looked at the dead crew members around them and knew it was too late. "No," he admitted, "I can't forget." "Neither can I," Veltar said sadly. They stood together in the ruined bridge, surrounded by the bodies of people they had both failed to protect. Outside, the battle was ending. The Zephyrian fleet was retreating. Marcus had won another meaningless victory in a war that was destroying everything he had once fought to save. "This is not how our story should end," Veltar said. "No, Marcus." Agreed, it's not. But they both knew the story would continue, getting darker and more terrible, until one of them was dead and the other was left alone with his guilt. 3 more years of war had brought both civilizations to the edge of total destruction. Admiral Marcus Chun stood on the bridge of his last flagship. the rebuilt Defiance as Earth grew larger on the main screen. The planet looked different. Now, massive orbital defense platforms surrounded it like a metal shell. The blue oceans were darker, polluted by the debris of 100 space battles. This was it. The final battle of the war. Whoever won here would control what remained of human space. The loser would face extinction. Marcus looked around his bridge. Half the stations were empty. There were not enough trained officers left to fill them. The crew members who remained were mostly children and old men. Anyone else was already dead. "Sir," called Ensign Park, barely 18 years old, "the Zephyrian fleet is approaching." 200 ships, Marcus nodded. He had only 130 vessels left in his entire fleet. Most were damaged and running on emergency power. But they were all humanity had left. "Signal all ships," Marcus ordered. "This is Admiral Chun. Today we fight for our home. Today we fight for our families. Today we fight for the future of our species. Do not let them reach Earth." The response came back from every ship in his fleet. Voices tired from years of war, but still determined to protect their world. Marcus felt proud of them. They deserved better leaders than the politicians who had started this nightmare. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "Fleet Commander Veltar Keth is requesting to speak with you." Marcus almost refused. What was there left to say? They had already spoken their last words at Helios Gate 3 years ago. But something made him accept the call. Veltar appeared on the screen. The alien looked ancient now. His green scales had turned gray in places. One of his eyes was artificial, replaced after a battle injury. His uniform was as worn and patched as Marcus's own. "Marcus Chun," Veltar said quietly, "today one of us dies." "Today both of us die," Marcus replied. "This war has already killed everything we used to be, perhaps. But my duty requires me to destroy your world, just as your duty requires you to stop me." Marcus looked at his former friend. Behind Veltar, he could see the Zephyrian bridge crew. They looked as tired and desperate as his own people. This war had consumed both civilizations. "Veltar," Marcus said, "do you remember what we were fighting before this war started?" "The Void Swarm," Veltar answered. "We thought we had destroyed them. What if we were wrong?" Before Veltar could answer, alarms began screaming on both bridges. The sensor operators on both ships were shouting warnings at the same time. "Sir," yelled Ensign Park. New contacts appearing throughout the system. "Massive energy signatures, it's impossible." Marcus looked at his tactical display. Hundreds of new ships were materializing out of nothing. Ships that looked like they were made of living shadow and teeth. Ships he had hoped never to see again. "The Void Swarm," he whispered. On the screen, Veltar's face showed the same horrified recognition. "They were not destroyed, they were hiding, waiting for us to weaken ourselves." The first swarm ship opened fire on a human cruiser. The vessel simply disappeared, consumed by weapons that turned matter into energy. More swarm vessels attacked both fleets at once. Marcus realized the terrible truth. The war between humans and Zephyrians had been exactly what the swarm wanted. While both civilizations destroyed each other, the real enemy had grown stronger. Now they faced an enemy that had learned from their previous defeat. "All ships," Marcus broadcast to both fleets. "This is Admiral Chun. The Void Swarm has returned. I recommend immediate cooperation between human and Zephyrian forces." Veltar's voice joined the transmission. "All Zephyrian vessels, this is Fleet Commander Keth. Follow Admiral Chun's tactical instructions. Our old enemy has returned." It felt strange to be working together again after 6 years of killing each other. But the old partnership came back. Quickly, Marcus and Veltar had fought the swarm before. They knew how to coordinate their attacks. "Zephyrian ships take the center formation," Marcus called out. "Human vessels will provide flanking support. Focus fire on their command ships." The combined fleet turned to face the swarm attack. But there were too many enemy vessels. For every swarm ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The creatures had been breeding and building while the galaxy burned itself apart. Marcus Veltar said over a private channel. We cannot win this battle, there are too many of them. Marcus studied the tactical display. His friend was right. Even working together, they were outnumbered 10-1. The swarm had waited until both civilizations were nearly extinct before revealing themselves. There is one option, Marcus said slowly. The Earth defense grid has a fail-safe system. If activated, it will cause all the orbital platforms to overload simultaneously. That would destroy everything in the system, Veltar replied. Including Earth itself. Including the swarm, if we can draw them close enough to the planet, we can take most of their fleet with us. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. How do we activate this system? It requires 2 command codes. One from the human fleet commander and one from an allied fleet commander. The designers wanted to prevent any single person from destroying Earth. An allied fleet commander, Veltar repeated. Like a Zephyrian. Like a Zephyrian, Marcus agreed. They both understood what this meant. To save the galaxy from the swarm, they would have to sacrifice themselves, their fleets, and Earth itself. Billions of people would die. But if they did nothing, trillions would die as the swarm consumed every world in known space. My government will call me a traitor, Veltar said. Mine too, Marcus replied. But our governments are wrong. They have been wrong about everything. The swarm ships were getting closer to Earth. Soon they would begin consuming the planet's population. Marcus and Veltar had maybe 10 minutes to make their decision. Do you remember what you said after the battle on Kepler 442b? Marcus asked. I said we were brothers in arms. That the bond could not be broken. Were you right? Veltar looked directly at Marcus through the screen. Despite everything that had happened between them, despite 6 years of war and hatred, something of their old friendship remained? Yes, Veltar said. I was right, the bond was never broken, we just forgot it for a while. Marcus nodded. Then let's end this the way we should have ended the swarm war, together. Both commanders entered their authorization codes. The Earth defense grid began to overload. Every orbital platform around the planet started building toward a massive explosion that would sterilize the entire system. All ships, Marcus broadcast to both fleets. This is Admiral Chun. In 60 seconds, this system will be destroyed. Any vessel that can make the jump to hyperspace should do so immediately. Most of the ships tried to escape. Some made it out. Before the explosion, others were too damaged to run. Marcus and Veltar's flagships were among those that stayed behind. Their engines had been destroyed in the fighting. Marcus, Veltar said as the countdown reached 10 seconds. I am sorry for everything that happened between us. So am I, brother, Marcus replied. So am I? The explosion lit up half the galaxy. When it was over, Earth was gone. Both fleets were gone. The majority of the swarm fleet was gone. And 2 friends who had become enemies had become brothers once more. In the aftermath, the surviving human and Zephyrian ships found each other in deep space. Their commanders, following the last orders of Marcus and Veltar, agreed to an immediate ceasefire. The war was over. Years later, when historians wrote about the conflict, they called it the War of Brothers. They said it showed how easily friendship could turn to hatred and how hatred could be overcome by sacrifice. But the people who had served under Marcus Chun and Veltar Keth knew the real truth. The 2 commanders had never stopped being brothers. They had just forgotten for a while what brotherhood really meant. Their sacrifice saved the galaxy and ended a war that should never have started. In death, they accomplished what they could not achieve in life. They brought peace to their peoples and reminded everyone that some bonds are stronger than politics, stronger than fear, and stronger than death itself.